So one of the things that truly made my day is one kid had emailed us and was like, "Hey, I'm starting this master's in real estate program, and just want to say I'm a big fan. I'm one of your first 15."
Yeah.
And when he said the first 15, I was like, I can't believe anybody actually pays that
picked up on that
much attention. But Vic, good to have you.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Excited to be here, bud.
Yeah, I'm excited you flew in and get to spend a little bit of the day with us.
Yeah.
We're starting. We might as well. So our guest, Vikram Raya. I mean, we're super excited.
This is all the guests are important.
Yeah.
But this is the guest.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This is the title guest right here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me, man. I just flew in. I wanted to do this in person, hang out with you guys. I know the CRE Daily has been blowing up. A lot of people read it in the newsletters. And, once you started the podcast, I go, this is awesome. This is a great idea. And you guys have an interesting experience. Like you have office, you got multifamily, you got different parts of the country.
Yep.
And I was like, what the hell is no cap? Right? And I was telling my kids that. And they were started laughing. I was like, why are you guys laughing? I'm like, because I told them, hey, I'm going to New York for a quick podcast trip. And they're like, oh, cool. What's the name of the podcast? They're like, no cap. And they couldn't stop laughing. And then they told me it means like no lie or like
and
legit.
Just so you know, we didn't know at first either, or at least I did. Did you know what it meant at first? Like
he does this every episode.
Time. Come
every
on.
episode. All right.
So listen,
he created the name.
I thought no cap was like, hey, cap rate. Cap X, no cap in what you can do, right? So many things that, all these puns related to real estate. And I had no clue that it's what the kids these days referred to as just truth.
Jack is really in touch with the Gen Z community.
Yeah, I've gotten better about it.
And he's having a brat summer.
I still don't have a TikTok.
Jack is having a brat summer.
I don't have a TikTok account still, so I'm not like that.
It's okay. That's because your Snapchat's overfilled. Right?
He doesn't have a TikTok.
Vic and I were Snapchatting earlier, so.
You know what's weird? He doesn't have a TikTok account, but he still records the dances. So
you saw that?
Where are you posting those?
Shit.
You know what's the problem is? You guys are posting on LinkedIn and things. You should be posting this on TikTok. They're like, no cap.
Right.
Oh, we're in.
We blow
no
up.
Cap.
Yeah. Are you on TikTok?
My team has me on there. I don't think we're active though.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Do your boys use TikTok?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Because you're keeping them off.
Yes.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. It melts too much of my brain.
Yes.
And then I do things like make up dances with Jack.
Yeah.
The goal is, man, it's a doom scrolling. Once you get into that rabbit hole,
oh, forget it. And these algorithms are insane.
Yeah.
They're literally insane. They know what you're thinking. It's the weirdest thing.
And speaking of know what you're thinking, I mean, I've fallen in love with I have a lot of friends, but most people are like, you watch the movie Her.
Sure.
It's about that. You fall in love with your AI or your phone.
Oh, yes.
And so I've been using this ChatGPT, but there's a mode where it's conversational mode.
Yeah,
and it becomes like this orb that you just talk to, and it goes back and forth and knows everything about you.
Oh man!
So I'm like,
it's the beginning of the end.
I'm like, I don't need to talk to my friends. I have a very intelligent counterpart here that I can like.
Yeah, I'm sure your wife loves that. It's just like, well, hey, what are you doing? No, I'm just talking to
my friend.
Do you ever do it late night, like between hours of like 12 and 3 a.m.?
What are you referring to when you're saying do it late night?
I'm saying, do you ever talk to this ChatGPT or between the hours of like 12 and 3 a.m.? Your wife turns over, she's like, who are you talking to?
I think that would be the end of the relationship.
That would blow it. But well, we want to talk about your background and we want to talk about Viking Capital and how you got into it. I mean, Viking's been very active. We see you doing deals all over the place, and you're a cardiologist by trade.
We have so much to cover.
There's so much to cover.
I don't know how we do this in this episode.
So we're excited that you're spending your time with us of all people.
Yeah, but the way we like to usually kick it off is give us your background. How did you? What are your roots? Where'd you start? How'd you get into the business?
So the short of it is, I was born in India. I was 2 years old when I came.
Where in India?
South India, Bangalore. So Silicon Valley of India.
Big university town.
But back in the day, it was like, it was just a small, sleepy town, right? And things have changed. I mean, I went back there just recently to visit family and
completely changed.
Completely changed. I mean, we didn't have like fancy 5-star hotels. Now there's like a JW Marriott, and then I go get some coffee in the morning, and there's like 5 Lamborghinis parked. I'm like, this is not India. This is not.
I was in northern India in 2012, and I remember seeing Lamborghini dealership and some other crazy stuff. And I was like, this is you can see the growth. You can see what's happening here. It's insane.
And so, India was where I grew up, came to this country when I was 2. My dad was an engineer. He got a job, I think, in Augusta, of all places.
He's a nuclear engineer.
And
Augusta, Georgia.
Augusta, Georgia, And that was his first job. And then once he got settled, he brought me and my mom over. And, we started our life here. And for many years, he just did what he was supposed to do, which is like work hard, do the engineering thing. And, good middle class upbringing. And it's similar to like the military families. Like they'd go to a military base, and after a couple of years, they had to move. And so I had to learn to make friends very quickly, learn a new system, and because every 2 years I moved. So we moved to like 14 different things. And the interesting thing was we lived in apartments for most of our life until I would say my high school years. And so I got to learn apartments. I got to live in these things. Yeah. I got to meet friends. I would hang out with the apartment manager at the clubhouse. I'd go to the swimming pool, and it was like a sort of interesting, fun lifestyle. And then I learned the South Sunbelt, right? I lived in Texas. I lived in Fort Worth. We would go visit Houston, Austin, right? And then eventually my dad, like the industry sort of died. The nuclear industry just didn't pan out at some point. And
because they just stopped building.
They stopped building nuclear power plants. Like France still did it in other countries, but the U.S. stopped. And so he had a tough choice to make. Do I go work at $70,000 an hour? $70,000 a year job, or do something different? And he took a bold move and he goes, I'm going to start a business. And he opened up a convenience store. And my mom's like, are you freaking kidding me? And she was like, so upset, like, oh, you had this engineering degree and you're going to go do this.
Right, it's prestigious.
This job, right? Yeah. And he always had this like itch. And so, first I have to thank my parents, man. Like, as you get older, you really appreciate them more. Yeah. Like when I was in high school, I'd like yell at them, and like college, you're like, man.
Do you have siblings or?
Yeah, I have a younger brother.
Okay.
And so my mom always wanted a doctor, and my dad always wanted a business guy. So my dad, I went to medical school eventually, and then my brother ended up going to Duke. He got he went to U Chicago, got an MBA.
Oh, wow.
He worked at Apple. He did investment banking. So he did the whole corporate route, the traditional
traditional
investment
code Indian parent guilt route.
And then I did the let's go be a doctor thing.
Yeah.
So
they were probably so happy.
And so and then they were happy until I made a U-turn in
right. We got to talk about
my investment decisions, right? But
so he opened a convenience store and had some success with it.
And it was his first business. But throughout his career, he was like all of us. We started doing side hustles on the side. So he was doing he was a part-time stockbroker in the 90s. He went and speculated on land in India. And then he started doing like retail strip malls. And so I started learning about a little bit of the entrepreneurship from him. But I just kept in the back of my mind because I was like, okay, I got my path. Just keep my head down and just grind. Because like you really can't breathe when you're like in the undergraduate, graduate, medical school, residency thing. So went to school at Emory in Atlanta, went to Medical College of Georgia, and then went up to D.C. That's how I came to D.C. And I went to Georgetown for my internal medicine training. And then 6 people in my family died of heart attacks.
Wow.
And so
that was just out of nowhere?
It was just, we have a family history. I mean,
did they seem healthy or did it?
Healthy, relative, right? But like it was crazy when so many people.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And so I was like, damn, I need to figure this out. So while I was choosing careers and specialties, I was like, let me choose cardiology, I was like, yeah, it has a good income, but it was also very personal for me. Yeah. And so I went and I was like, that was my dream. I was like, dude, I want to become a cardiologist. That's it, nothing else. And when I was in Wisconsin where I was training, I noticed that all my attendings, the people I was respecting, they were like, you thought it was all about the patients, but they were like, all right, I need to do this much to earn this amount of income. And things started becoming more monetary versus pure for the game. They were mercenaries versus missionaries.
Yeah.
And that's when I started thinking about, hey, when I do practice, I want to figure out other streams of income perhaps so I can play for the love of the game versus I have to do this.
Right.
And so then I started exploring other things, read the Kiyosaki books, read all the other books. And my first business, my first LLC was I got a contract to do moonlighting at a nursing facility. And I was like, all right, well, I'll do that. But then I realized they had more capacity for more doctors. And so I created a company, got the contract, and then I let other docs in my fellowship moonlight, and I would take a little bit off the top. And so I started like a
nice.
staffing
Cool.
business.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I was like, all right, this LLC thing is not too crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and I thought I was proud, but I'm even more prouder because like a couple of days ago, we were talking, you know, in the pre-podcast discussion that my boys, I have two boys, 11 and 13, Veer and Armand, and they just launched their first business. And
it's
the
convenience
vending machine business. So
yeah.
I was like, I don't know, 30 when I got my first business going. They're 13.
Is your dad schooling them right now on the do's and don'ts?
So speaking of my dad, like, you know, I wanted to surprise him. He just turned 75 and I was like, all right, I need to get him something. What do you get this guy who's like, you know, a little eccentric and crazy and it's fun and energetic.
We should have had him on.
You would have been a 2-hour episode
Next
for sure.
episode.
So then I got him this book, and it's a legacy book. It's like his whole life story, but we tricked him into thinking it was like he was doing something for a school project. And so my grandkids interviewed him, and then, you know, you'd think he'd talk about me or my brother or my mom or the grandkids, but he was talking about like NVIDIA and AI. He had a whole chapter devoted to that in his book. And so it was crazy.
Amazing.
So anyway, so
kids are doing vending machines.
Kids are doing vending machines.
Did they buy out a current owner of vending machines?
No, they went to
one by one?
Sam's and they got the real deal vending machine. They did all the research and they're doing it. And so that, you know, that's the thing. Like, I really want this generation of kids out here to think differently. And I think and we'll talk about doctors and maybe are they good investors? Are they bad investors and things like that? But it's interesting. But I think the times are changing. You can't be just a W-2 and live a traditional life anymore. You got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable, you know?
Yeah.
With AI coming, with all the changes and investments coming along.
Right.
Yeah.
Will Social Security still be around? There's a lot
That's
of
a big one.
lot of question marks. Yeah. So you're a cardiologist. You're finding ways to earn income in other ways.
Yeah. You do the staffing thing. What came next?
What came next was I was like, you know, I see all these people day trading and doing that. So I was like, dude, I'm going to get into options trading. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be like those dumb doctors. I'm going to get an options coach. And so I got an options coach and I literally lost $10,000 in my first year of options trading.
That was a big
And I'm
blow.
like, this
Maybe not for me.
is too complex.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it. Like, okay, I got up to, I think, butterflies or some strategy with that. I was like, this is way too complex. I'm out. You know, they're starting to use animals and insects.
Yeah.
You know,
the
I'm
butterfly
out.
I
strategy.
became a cardiologist, not a vet. Now I lost 10 grand.
So
right.
my wife's like already like, you know, like, why don't you just go do those cardiac caths that you learned to do, you know? And so we moved back to DC. We're like, all right, let's settle down, have our family life. And my wife was a physician as well. So she was doing her thing. I was doing my thing. But I still couldn't put this itch away that I should be up to something else because I felt like it was so risky just to have all my income coming from this one thing.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking a little differently than my colleagues. And I actually made a declaration. I said, if I'm still practicing by the age of 40, something went terribly wrong. Not saying I'm going to retire, but I don't want this to be like where all my money's coming from.
Yeah.
So I had a window. So I was at 33 when I said that declaration. And I didn't know how, but in the next 5 to 7 years, I'd figure something out. So a lot of people in their mid 30s and 40s, they sometimes have a midlife crisis. And so
I've had 3 or 4 already. Yeah.
This week.
coming up here, right?
Yeah, just getting here. Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, what does that look like, right? They can, you know, sometimes they buy a red sports car or they start hanging out with their secretary after work,
Right.
And things like that. So
Yeah, a little chat GPT action.
So my wife noticed that I was coming home later and later every evening, and she's like, "What's going on, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm just so busy at work." And what really was happening was I was leaving work a little bit earlier, telling her I was staying at work, and I was going to my DC Real Estate Investment Association club
Learning
meetings.
up about real estate.
And I was literally having
Classic.
an affair with, like, you know.
Classic, yeah.
With real estate.
Yeah.
And then she finally caught on, and she's like, "Dude, what are you doing? You should be home with the family and stuff." But I was like,
You're
"Dude,
like, this is for us. This is an investment
So
in your
I
future.
had to learn this stuff. And so I tried house flipping. I tried, you know, wholesaling, all these, you know, beginner strategies. And then finally I realized, like, it's too damn expensive in DC. And so I remember Dad, very entrepreneurial, very hardcore guy. So I was like, "Hey, Dad, let's go do something in, like, you know, real estate stuff in Atlanta." And this was 2012. So it was perfect timing.
Yeah.
You know, in 2008, you know, I had no clue about the great financial crisis. I was sort of insulated. I was a physician. I was just working, right? But 2012, we're like, all right, this is a good time to start buying real estate. So my first home, was a $28,000 Rambler, that we fixed up, put $20,000 in, and we sold it for $80,000. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And so we ended up building a portfolio of about 30 homes. And I was like, okay, this is something. But we didn't really have that much equity, right? We take one, roll it over with equity, another. And so it's
and you're managing these
exactly.
yourselves,
They're
and
sort
they're
of
all
headache.
like by each
and
other.
I'm still practicing. He's still running his stuff, and we're all trying to do this remotely.
And you're taking turns, different tasks. Yep.
And my wife also told me, if you use your income or my income to sign on loans, we're done. And so I couldn't even use like traditional like financing, and so I had to be like hard money loans, creative financing, all this like hustler stuff. And I was like, this is very stressful. And then I don't see how this is going to replace my 6-figure salary. So then I heard a lecture about this guy talking about multifamily and raising capital and doing all this kind of stuff. I'm like, huh. And so that just stuck in my brain. And then finally, I met a buddy of mine, similar to like you guys, like, when you meet someone who has like the same vibe, the energy, similar mindsets, you hit it off, right?
Yeah, not this guy. This guy sucks.
That's not us.
And so I met a buddy of mine, his name is Ravi, and he ended up co-founding Viking Capital with me. So in 2015, we co-founded Viking Capital. He was a doctor, I was a doctor. His wife was, a rheumatologist. My wife's a rheumatologist.
Amazing.
Our kids were in the same daycare.
Yeah.
Wow.
He did a Tough Mudder. I did a Tough Mudder. I'm like, all right, there's something here.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And then he was like, I'm retired, dude. I have 5 threeplexes. I'm chilling. I'm like, dude, that's just beginning the game. Let's go buy 100 unit.
Yeah.
He's like, are you freaking kidding me? How the hell are we going to buy 100 unit? And that's where our journey started.
That's Viking.
And then we started
the beginning of Viking.
And the interesting side note, here's my connection to Elon Musk. So
I didn't know this. We didn't talk about this.
Vic came prepared today. This is what I like.
So
take note.
So I was like, there's this new company that came out, and they're selling these electric cars. No one was going to the showrooms. No one was buying. And, Ravi and I needed a place to have our launch party because we were a big, badass, institutional multifamily company, right? So we had to have like this.
Yeah, it's got to look the part. Yeah,
so
look cool.
We're like, hey, we went to the Tesla showroom and we're like, we don't even own any Teslas. We're like, hey, dude, can we have our launch party in your showroom? And they're like, sure, we need everyone. We're going to bring in like high net worth individuals. And they're like, sure.
It's a great idea. I mean,
we launched Viking Capital in 2015 in the DC Tesla showroom. And, that was
I'm sure a lot of people wanted to come just to see Teslas.
And so we had all these doctors.
And Elon couldn't give you a piece of each one sold?
So to be clear, Elon didn't show up that day.
No, I'm sure he would have. I'm sure he was busy. He probably didn't get my text.
Yeah. That's really cool. So, okay, so tell us about Viking, your first deal, and look, I mean, you already had some real estate experience, but you certainly hadn't really syndicated something before. So who did you go to raise money from? How did you put it together? How did you find the deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal was, hey, this was just a side hobby. Look, I was very happy being a cardiologist. He was happy with his physician job, and we thought this was just a interesting hobby, passion. Other people play golf. Some people do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Hey, we're buying some multifamily on the side, right? And so we worked hard. It's all about broker relationships, as you know. And as a side note, one of the things I've learned so far in being an entrepreneur is things compound, right? We know money compounds. Everyone talks about that. And the other thing is relationships compound. Yeah. So one of the things I think that's helped us become successful is we've really maintained these relationships. And we don't think of these relationships as 3 months, 6 months. These are like, how do we maintain a relationship for decades on end?
Yeah.
And the last thing that compounds is skills. And so, is an engineer going to be a good investor? Is a lawyer going to be a good investor? Is a doctor going to be? It's all about the skill acquisition of high utility. So I think skills compound over time. And so I think what allowed us to become more of a private equity company now, instead of like just a, run-of-the-mill syndication shop, is we've compounded these skills that, raising capital from institutions, learning how to structure deals, learning how to restructure deals when things hit the fan, right?
Right. Most important.
Talent acquisition, talent retention, right? How do you, create systems and protocols and things? So I think that's really helped us get to where we want to go. But back to your story, relationships.
Yeah.
It was hard to break into the thing, especially when you're a newbie. And these brokers in Atlanta, it was like a wall I couldn't penetrate. And I had 2 years of a broker relationship with this one group in Atlanta, and then finally they threw me a bone, and it was not a good deal. But I gave them good feedback, and they're like, oh, "Okay, cool. I like your feedback. Okay, I'll keep you in mind."
Yeah.
And so what happened was, here's the New York connection. The New York equity is very strong that likes to invest in Atlanta, similar to Texas, right? And so this New York group got under contract this deal that we were looking at too. It was a 118 unit. It was in southern part of Atlanta, C-class property. Back then in 2016, cap rates were about 6.5, maybe 7 caps. And the per unit price was like, it was a 70s vintage, 118 units, and it was $30,000 a door.
Wow.
So for us, we're like,
Not seeing that
at the time you didn't know, right?
We didn't know if that was amazing or not, but the numbers seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
We were second runner up. The New York group beat us out, and we're like, damn, okay, well, go back to the drawing board, you know? And this is where relationships and perseverance come in. So 2 weeks later, we get a phone call, and they're like, are you ready to take down that deal? I'm like, no, I thought you awarded it to the New York group. They're like, they backed out. I'm like, oh.
You hung around the hoop.
Tell me what happened. Don't worry about it. Just let's go ahead and get you in.
Don't worry.
No. Then I was like, no. What happened? He's like, oh, there's a murder on the property. And so, I'm a cardiologist. I'm about to go into the critical care unit, taking care of people. I'm in DC. There's some, maybe some dignitaries I'm even taking care of. My friend is also in another high. And we're getting a call saying, hey, do you want to take down a 70s property, C-class, murder on the property?
Right. And then, I'm sold. Yeah.
That's called value add.
Yeah.
That's value add there. Let's bring the Kevlar. And let's bring some
you got this.
Nest cameras, and we're fine, right?
It happens.
And so that was a gut check moment where. So then we're like, what do you do? So we checked the crime records. We talked to the police department. This is an anomaly. This normally is a very safe area.
Yep.
And so we figured out how to mitigate risk. We put a police officer on property. We gave him a discount on one of the things. We put in cameras. We did whatever we could, and we went in and did the deal.
And did you do agency debt or?
We did agency debt.
Okay.
And it was such a good deal. It was 60-40 split to our investors, where we took 60. They took 60. We took 40.
Just kept it simple.
And essentially the way we did it was 10 doctors who helped us fund that deal. It was all friends and family.
You were doing value add at that time?
Value add.
So you were renovating these properties?
We renovated them. And then the interesting thing that happened was the property next door was condo conversion that went bad.
Okay.
So empty condo units, there's dead dogs, there's prostitutes, there's all that. It was bringing the value of our property down. Yeah. And so the problem was we couldn't get a loan on that because they were essentially vacant and there were condos. And so we didn't want to take down the property, but we had to because
it was affecting yours.
It was literally next door to us. So we borrowed from friends and family. We took all our money, and we just bought the other property. We had to buy it from each individual owner and then reconvert it back into apartments. Then that was 62 units. We combined the two into 180 units. Our basis all in was $5 million. All basis all in was $8 million all in for both, and we ended up selling it 2 years later for 13.
Wow.
Nice.
The moment that happened, I felt the courage to start saying, okay, maybe cardiology is not necessarily the main thing. And part of me is like, another interest I have is biohacking, anti-aging, longevity, and reversing disease. So as I was practicing cardiology and I was doing all this on the side, I was noticing, dude, I'm taking care of things on the back end when you've smoked for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. No, not me.
Okay.
But, no, like when people have smoked, then I'm taking care of the side effects that they're smoking, right, in cardiology. Yeah. Or they've eaten donuts all day long, or they're diabetic. And so I'm like, why don't I go upstream, And so
the preventative nature.
In my mind, I was like, can I learn that? Is there a business model there?
Yeah.
Can I? And so I was like, okay, if I make success in real estate, maybe I'll take the bold move and start my own clinic. And so with this huge cash exit for us, I was like, all right, I'm going to take that risk. And so I ended up transitioning out of traditional cardiology. And to my word, I got out by the age of 40.
Wow, that's great.
And I started a clinic in Tyson's Corner, Northern Virginia, and it was a boutique clinic. And while I was me and my partner were building Viking Capital, I was doing this clinic where we reversed diabetes, reversed hypertension, reversed heart disease.
So is that just
Yeah. When the hell do you sleep?
Yeah, when do you sleep?
When did you sleep?
So is this you're targeting like people's lifestyles and you're helping them?
Yeah, absolutely.
get their-
We were using like Oura rings, Whoop
Okay.
bands, genetic markers. Like you go to your traditional doctor, they give you like 10, 15 markers and they're like, all right, you're good to go, you know, and see me in, 6 months. But we're like, no, we want to do 200 markers.
Do you do like
Root
a full
cause.
blood work markup of like?
Like genetics,
Yeah.
gut microbiome.
So this is what I don't get.
The whole thing.
I don't understand why that's not just a thing that everyone gets. Like it should be just you're born and you get a full
Yes.
genetic
Yes.
like
Yes.
makeup.
Because
of every-
medicine is preventative. It's not.
No,
Yeah.
because
not
medicine
meant-
is
It's reactive.
Is reactive
Reactive,
versus
sorry.
preventative. Yeah.
Versus
So
preventative.
it's like reactive, preventative, and now I'm talking about predictive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go even. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a passion. It was amazing. And then what
And
happened
you still
was,
have that clinic? And you
Yeah.
still
So
do?
what happened was during the pandemic, unfortunately, I had to shut the physical part of the clinic down. So I made it more of a telemedicine clinic. And so that's been running the background. And the other interesting thing that happened was like all these physicians all over the country were like, dude, you're doing all these cool things outside of medicine. Can you help us? And so I started a consulting advisory for doctors, and that's called
Okay.
Limitless MD. So
Because
Yeah.
we all know that doctors are apparently not good with
Right.
investing their money.
So that's
so
true.
we're told.
Gen 1 of doctors, are probably our parents' age.
Yeah.
When they came here, they were, monomaniacally focused on, hey, let's
Helping
practice
people.
and help people,
Right.
which is great. But I think this generation of doctors, I think it's a new breed of doctors out there. I'm really proud to say, they're more aware of hey, I don't need to pay down my 3% student debt. Maybe I'll invest in an office building,
Yeah.
or maybe I'll go buy my own medical office building and own one of the spaces and rent the other space out. So I think doctors are starting to become much more savvy. I think across the board, lawyers, dentists, all these high income professionals are realizing, dude, I don't need to pay all this W-2 income. I need to start getting K-1 income.
Well, I think information's become so much more democratized. It's out there on the web. Everybody's learning from each other. So the cat's out of the bag a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like syndication was a foreign word to most people, or alternative investments, or crowdfunding and all that. But now that's starting to become
I feel like it's
mainstream.
also hard to just get into something that you don't know, right? That's a really tough barrier to break.
Especially if you don't have a mentor or someone who.
Of course.
Are you looking to build sustainable wealth and achieve financial freedom? Viking Capital can help you do just that through multifamily investing. With a team of seasoned real estate experts, Viking Capital conducts deep financial analysis and data-driven asset management to deliver outstanding returns.
And is there anybody mentoring you at that time?
Yeah,
Or is there anybody I know you looked up to your dad. Is there anybody else?
There's a ton of people, but back to your point about why maybe professionals, like really specialized professionals, are not good investors, is because think about it this way: they were taught that if they make a mistake, they can, like for example, a doctor, a surgeon, if he makes a mistake, that's a lawsuit or that's someone dying on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
But to be an entrepreneur, mistakes are part of the game.
Yeah.
So it's a hard transition to make in your mind to become okay with all the fake it till you make it, or success all the way to the top. So I think that transition is starting to happen, but that's one of the challenges I see for early doctors who are trying to get into entrepreneurship. And then in terms of mentorship, I don't know anyone who hasn't stood on the shoulders of giants and been able to see further.
Well, you can do it yourself and learn the hard way, or you can have someone kind of.
I think Roman, I heard Brad Sumrock, who's on your podcast. I think Sanjay was talking about some people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone has people whispering their ear, and encouraging them to move forward. And you'd be stupid not to use previous people's successes and learn from that and move forward. So I think reading a ton of books. Like I recently read The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Have you guys read that book?
No, I haven't.
Phenomenal book. And he talks about, when you're talking about mentors and leverage, and ideas, he talked about there's 4 forms of leverage. And when I'm trying to think about, maybe how Viking Capital was successful, we started using all forms of leverage. And for those of you who haven't read the book, it's a phenomenal book. It's a quick one. It says labor, right? And then it's capital, and then it's code, and there's 2 types of, and then it's media. And there's 2 types of code. There's actual digital, nerdy coding, and then there's AI, obviously. And so when I was looking at this example, I was like, let me test that. How about Jeff Bezos? Well, yeah, he uses most of those. How about Elon? Yeah. How about like Warren Buffett? So anyone who wants to be successful really has to start using, these things. And so first it was just me and my buddy, and we started our company. Then we're like, no, we need to scale and grow. So then we started hiring an underwriter. We started hiring an asset manager. And so then we started getting a little bit bigger. And then we're like, okay, what else do we need? We need to create a system to routinely get capital. Then we did that.
So you're more of you grow to an opco and you become just more sophisticated in
and then it's like level 1 leadership, and then you need your leadership above them, and they'll have their people who report up, and then you have investor platforms, you have marketing.
Yeah, but it took those first couple of deals to kind of get to that point
so
and to scale.
When you and Ravi sold that property, where you combined the 180 units, what year was that? That was
2017.
2017. All right, so not super long ago. I mean, 7 years.
But great time to be doing it.
Right.
Great time.
All right, so you guys sell out of this property. You have this new vote of confidence because you've now seen your skills shine in a very real and entrepreneurial way. Where'd you go from there? What came after that?
Yeah.
What was the next big milestone in Viking?
That's when we got punched in the face.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
So a little Mike Tyson moment, right? Right. So pre-COVID, or right on the cusp of COVID, we're like riding high. This is when success breeds hubris. Hubris breeds mistakes, and mistakes breeds experience, and experience breeds good judgment in the future, right? So what happened was we started going into partnerships, and everyone has their favorite partnership story. I have multiple, but I'll tell you one of them at least.
We love these war stories. People love this.
These scars. It
makes you stronger.
It makes you who you are, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have them, then you're vulnerable.
It's a good point.
I think it's good to have them. So we got into a partnership with some people who were very, very reputable in the industry, and they had a lot more experience than we did. We're like, okay, great. Our superpower is capital, and now we have relationships, so we can get deals. And so we got the deal. We had the capital, but we're like, operationally, it was a bigger thing. It was like, I think almost a 300 unit property we're trying to take down. And so we brought on people who had more asset management experience. The problem was what appeared on paper and what we actually got, as on the ground during the actual partnership was different. The other thing was we relinquished operational control.
I was going to ask that they were going to be the operating
So
partner.
we were the biggest group. We were 40% of the GP, but the other two groups together were 30 and 30. Okay. So we didn't think about 30 plus 30 is 60. And so they used to vote as a block, and they would outvote us. And so a lot of we're pretty quick when we buy a deal. We're like a SWAT team. We go in, boom, 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 renovate. Let's go get the operate. And it was like we had to go through meetings and committees and all that. And it was just there's nothing wrong with them. They're good people, but the chemistry wasn't there.
Yeah,
I didn't learn about. We use all these layers of. Disc scores and other ways to know if they're complementary skill sets, complementary people, complementary personalities, and so we were just novices at that point, and we ended up selling right before that huge shoot up in the market.
Okay,
so our investors got a small profit, and we were able to get out of the deal, relatively unscathed. But we left a lot of money on the table.
Well, Vic, if that's the worst story,
no, that's not the worst story.
Pretty, I mean, that's not too bad.
No, but. It was painful to go through that experience.
Sure. And you learned from it.
And we didn't take any money out of it at the end because we wanted to make sure our investors got some profit on it.
I think that's important, right? Yeah. I think nowadays more than ever, I think LPs want to know that you're not skimming money off of a deal when you don't maybe necessarily deserve it, right? I mean, you do see some syndicators doing deals for fees, and maybe they don't necessarily deserve those fees, or at the particularly times like these where it's been a little bit more challenging, but I think that goes a long way.
No, I think that comes from, and I think our unorthodox background, as we are thinking like physicians, right? So in the Hippocratic Oath, it's do no harm.
Yeah.
And for me, that translates into capital preservation or investors first.
Yeah.
And so that's been our investor first mindset. And so we have this on our core values, it's like the Ritz-Carlton approach. It's investor mindset. It's like, think like institution, but act like white glove service. So this is how some of the tenets of Viking. So let's talk about challenges. No cap, right? Let's keep it real here. Baby. Let's keep it real.
Let's go.
So we've gotten and if you haven't been through adversity during the last 2 or 3 years, you're sitting it out.
Totally.
Or you had a crystal ball and you just somehow knew to sell at the peak of the market, which I think there's probably a handful of people.
Someone out there, there's people who've just crushed it.
That's not us. We believe in the all-weather strategy, like literally different strategies for different parts of the economic cycle. And because I don't think it's hard to time.
Yeah.
And I think we're not in this business for a couple of weeks or months or a couple of years. I mean, we're thinking like a 50-year approach or a 100-year approach.
I like that approach, even with the relationship discussion that you were talking about. I mean, just building these things looking long-term versus I think everyone wants a quick gain.
And listen, going back to your, the story that you told, I think it's, like, hindsight's 2020, but who the hell knows what you're buying at? You looked at a deal. Yeah. It was $30,000 a unit, and you're like, I don't know if we can push on this. Yeah. Because who knows if it's going to $120,000 a door at this point? But
you can only do so much. Right. Yeah. I mean, how do you know where your terminal cap rate's going to be?
In a similar fashion, I was looking at a deal in Kansas City. It was 110 units, bunch of great attributes to it, right? But we were bidding at what to me seemed high, but I was within my parameters. We're at $110,000 per unit. And this was in, 2019, like right before COVID. And I couldn't get there. I couldn't get there. We had another guy coming in. It's that period where the whole Midwest started coming in with these all cash deals, 30-day close, and I couldn't.
You're like, it's the Midwest.
And I think he was getting to like, 112 unit, but I was like, 110's my cap. It already feels that was a cap.
It feels tight.
It felt too rich. Yeah. Because historically that market traded for 70 or 80 a door. And that was already rich because there's, I've got buddies like Jared who were sitting there and he's like, you shouldn't be buying in Kansas City unless it's 40,000 a door, right? That deal ended up trading 2 years later, similar fashion for $140,000 a door. Who knows?
Right place, right time.
So to your point, this all-weather strategy.
You notice he still remembers the deal.
Of course I do, because it haunts me when I sleep. From it.
So those are data points, right? Those are all data points. And so next time an offer comes like that, maybe, he'll edge a little bit slightly more aggressive. Who knows?
I think that's where we, and I probably similar to you, I do some mentoring of guys who are trying to get into real estate, young analysts in their first and second years. And I think a lot of them, and for whoever's listening, you guys tend to put too much emphasis on just underwriting the deal and the numbers, and you should. That's a phenomenal skill set. Yes. We're talking about skill acquisition. Keep that up. Yeah. But don't lose the art versus science of real estate. There's still an art to it, and I think that's kind of what plays into it is if you really like the fundamentals of a deal, don't give it all up for the science. If you truly feel good about it, right? If you like the location, if we tend to like do all those things that we call, just checking the box. That's a really important box, right? Is the demo good? Is the crime rate low? Are the incomes high? Is the population growing? Those aren't like just, it's not a sniff test. No. That's the test.
Those are
right?
legit.
And we forget that. And then we focus on, but if the vacancy is 4% versus 3%, then my returns are 2 points lower. Yeah, dude. Also, it could blow up tomorrow. Who knows, right?
So this goes back to like sort of the Japanese philosophy. Like when you talk to Japanese business leaders, they say like they don't think in like 5, 10, 15. They think 100-year plans. And so if that's what you're saying is so true, because what's the problem with real estate? If you hold any piece of real estate long enough, you're going to make money, right? Yeah. Like anything in New York you buy at any price, 15 years from now, you're going to make money. Like we know that.
So, yeah.
I mean,
if you fare the weather correctly, yeah.
So the key is the interest rate or the loan structure perhaps, and then it's the duration. So that is why I think real estate's forgiving. And this brings me to like, you asked me mentors. I mean, obviously like, big people like, you got Sam Zell, like, Equity Residential. You got like Steve Schwartzman, Blackstone, like all these guys, by the way, they're giving a lot of us who are not institutions confidence that we're probably in the right zone because this is where the smart money is doing, right? Yeah. KKR, Brookfield, Equity, and Blackstone, they've all had huge acquisitions in the last 4 to 6 months. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so
now their money's cheap, right?
Yeah, their money's cheap, but we can't time the market. But maybe this is the bottom,
right?
Are you looking to build sustainable wealth and achieve financial freedom? Viking Capital can help you do just that through multifamily investing, offering a powerful way to grow your wealth passively. Passive investing with Viking Capital allows you to benefit from a lucrative world of real estate without the hassles of day-to-day management. Their team of seasoned real estate experts takes care of everything from sourcing high-potential properties to managing them efficiently, so you can enjoy the returns without the stress.
Well, on that note, tell us, like, what's Viking looking for now? Like, what are you guys looking for? Are you looking for distress? Are you looking to buy notes right now? Are you just looking for run-of-the-mill good deals in a market where they're there, but much harder to find? What's the strategy?
And also, how are you guys capitalizing today? Is there a fund structure? Are you guys still raising deal by deal? Because I think that influences a lot of the strategy.
We've evolved on our capital raising, and then what we're seeing is this. Those 2 years that everyone bought, that was the only way to buy during that time. And so, unless you were going to sit it out, you're going to have some debt issues and restructuring issues. And so that's what we're having to do with a few of our portfolio. We weren't as aggressive as some of the other companies out there.
Yeah.
And I wish it was all insight. Oh, I knew this was happening, and that's why we didn't buy so much. But I just think that the evolution of our company, that was not ready to go mainstream. And in fact, the timing is perfect because this year will probably be our biggest year ever. And I think that works out with economic cycles. But the deals we are having that we're challenged with, everyone is dealing with the same thing. So what makes some companies successful and some people not? I was trying to think about it on my flight up here, and I think it's the mindset of the leadership, right? It's 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, or 20% strategy. And so if we're all dealing with the same situation, we've all done the same thing. Why are some people successful? Why are there investors reinvesting despite what happened? Well, number one, as I told you, capital preservation is number one. So we've never had to do a capital call. So despite all the deals we've ever bought. Number two, we've never lost an investor dollar. And that means me and Ravi are willing to do whatever we take from our own things, and we're going to take care of these deals regardless. I'm not saying that can always be the case, but that's what we're doing right now,
Sure.
And number three is we figured out how to restructure debt intelligently, where we're actually having two deals where it's like neutral restructuring, and one deal we're actually having cash out refinance, which is amazing
in this environment.
And that's because we thought outside the box. Everyone's buying in Atlanta, Austin, Texas. We have a lot of deals in those areas too, but we bought in Indiana. Super, red state, pretty stable state, and man, rents have not really dropped. They've been very slow and steady increasing. And then the other thing is, like, if you do your value add, as people say you're supposed to, as soon as you buy a property, you can sometimes outpace the other challenges you have. And so we did that. And so we have a 400-year property that we just went to town on their value adds. And now that's what's leading to that cash out refinance. And so this is how we're at least taking care of our investors during these tougher deals that we've had.
Beautiful. Now, was that bridge debt or is that agency?
These are all initially they were bridge, but now we're going bridge to CMBS or bridge to this one's going to be this will also be bridge to CMBS too.
We're seeing some CMBS get more aggressive.
CMBS seems to be a little more competitive, and they're also giving a little bit better leverage. So, but it's fixed debt now, and so now we're good. Yeah.
Wow.
And what we're talking about?
We're talking about your capital structure.
Capital structure. So what we're seeing on the horizon is the deals that we're seeing that make sense now are either they're basis deals. Like in Austin, we bought a deal at $150,000 a unit, and this was in New Braunfels, which is an amazing corridor, right? DFW is amazing because it's one huge megapolis, and so this metroplex. And I think San Antonio and Austin are doing the same thing.
Right.
The I-35 corridor is blowing up, right? And Austin's overbuilt, San Antonio's overbuilt. True, but the suburbs on that whole corridor is not. And so we've bought there, and then the other thing we've been studying is supply and demand, right? So everyone's saying new construction, there's too much supply everywhere in the country. But I think it's falling off a cliff after about 2025.
Yep.
And so we have planned a 5-year hold. And so we bought this deal at $150K a door, and it's like 2020, like a newer vintage. Like
so well below replacement costs.
Yes.
Right.
And so we think it's worth $250 a door, and we're buying for $150 a door. And it's beautiful, well located, well situated.
How are you financing that?
So that was agency.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything we try to do agency as much as we can, unless
low leverage or
low leverage.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because you would say, hey, it's a choice, but in the leverage, the agency doesn't give you a choice.
But you got some interest only in there.
Yeah, we got some interest only. We have some agency there. And then the other two deals we did this year were interesting. It's groups that are smaller groups that get a deal under contract, but don't have either the bandwidth, the capacity, or the operational expertise to take it to full closure. And so our relationships, back to relationship building, the brokers come to us and say, hey, can you take over this deal?
So you've co-GP'd these deals?
No, you're actually you're taking over the deal.
We're leaving them in there for a token, but we're taking over the deal because we have the capabilities to get the debt, to get the pref equity, and to close the deal.
I mean, those are great opportunities these days.
And so we bought a deal in Decatur near the CDC and Emory University. It's 2023 built. It's worth $70 million or $76 million at peak pricing. Let's call it if they sold it at the top of the market. We're buying for $58 million.
Yeah.
And this is new vintage, built last year.
Yeah. So if you can just be patient and ride the market.
It's like a wrap podium property. So it's like, so these are the kind of opportunities we're getting. And we weren't the first to get under contract, but we're the ones who are taking it to the finish line.
And the idea being, hey, in 2 years, when supply kind of drops off, you're in the money.
Yeah. And we already made the money, I think, because of the basis play. And then we're making sure there's cash flow. We're not just doing just for basis.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so here's the question I have. This is what I think Alex and I have been thinking for a while. Vic, do you sleep? And if so, how long are you sleeping for? What's your schedule like? I mean, it sounds like you're pretty
Seriously.
on it. Yeah.
Sure. Especially a guy with an emphasis on biohacking. Yeah. So you pay a lot of attention to your body.
The moment you said biohacking, you knew we were going to have to ask about that.
I have a book that's coming out that has a sleep chapter, and I'm going to.
What's the name of the book?
It's called The Perfect Week Formula for doctors, and anyone can read it. But it's for doctors too. And I'll mail you guys a copy.
Please.
But I'll give you the tidbit on that. But I wanted to quickly answer your question. I forgot about the capital stack. So yes, small, humble roots. Yeah. 2 physicians starting a little real estate, little company. But I think we're at the point where we've just crossed $1 billion of acquisitions. And we admire people like Trinity Capital. We admire these equity firms. And we're starting to get into development. Our first development deal is coming up, and ground up. And so that's cool. And so we've created, our good friends and family were there. Then we got this physician equity fund. And we actually have funds that are discretionary. And then we have small family offices, and then we have high net worth individuals. And now we're starting to approach ultra high net worths.
Wow.
And so this compilation of capital, I mean, we've raised about $350 million of private capital from these different sources so far. So I think we're well capitalized to really take advantage of the opportunities that are in this market. Now, the goal is to be cautiously optimistic, cautiously aggressive, if there's such a term. But that's the thing. Back to the sleep question.
Yes, please.
10, 3, 2, 1, 0 formula.
Okay.
Here it is. 10 hours before you go to sleep, no caffeine.
Okay.
3 hours before you go to sleep, no heavy meals or alcohol. 2 hours before you go to sleep, shut down all work, shut down those laptops, and go do some BJJ, right?
And no phone.
And no phone.
I'm usually drinking a martini.
And then 1 hour,
no,
you can still do the phone a little bit, but 1 hour before you go to sleep, no blue light. No blue light.
Yeah.
And 0 times you press snooze.
Yeah.
And here's a productivity technique I've learned from like the most efficient people on the planet. Try to treat your weekends and weekdays the same.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's a tough part.
And then the thing is, the number one productivity hack I can think of that if I had to distill down to one thing, it's not about what time you get up, it's the time you go to sleep. Right? If you can win the night, you could crush the morning.
Yeah.
And my last thing I would say is no great things happen after 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Probably some shady things.
I have the same motto, but it's midnight. Yeah. And I always say that.
Just gotta tweak it.
So funny enough, my friends, we were out in Southampton last week, but they all know at 12 o'clock a day, like 11:50, they'll start coming up to me and they're like, "Are you getting out of here?" I was like, "I'm getting out of here." And it wasn't like a slight that they don't want me in the party. They're like, "We know he's leaving."
Yeah.
And I
do
really
you say bye to people, or do you just?
If necessary, but
I think it's easier, like why make this?
Yeah, but you should see my Ubers. Like I leave almost at like 11:59 on the dot. I'm exiting the place.
Well, your sleep schedule. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to make sure my wife listens to this episode because Well, she better be listening to every episode, but this for sure, because getting to bed on time and not making excuses.
She wants to cuddle. They want to talk.
Forget it.
Kids want to talk about something. I'm like, guys, let's go.
Yeah,
You guys need to be productivity hacking. All right. So now this is the part of the segment where we ask the hard-hitting questions. Okay. We were talking before the podcast. You have been keeping me on the edge of my heels. There's some BJJ connection here.
Yes. Tell people what that is.
So the people know.
People
my friends
may not know the acronym.
No.
Yeah.
So these guys are going off to the deep end.
I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu about 3.5 years here in the city at the Renzo Gracie Academy.
Yeah.
We have some connection here. What's
the connection is?
Tell me what's going on.
It's this. Here's the
as I sit here with a black eye and a semi-broken nose.
No, it's cool, man. It's cool
week.
when you trip.
It's not really cool at 30, by the way. Can I just say this? It's a lot of people are like, oh no, it's cool. Like it looks like you can fight. First of all, I can't fight.
Yeah.
Hence, I have a black eye and a broken nose. Jokes aside,
is
it's not
jiu-jitsu
cool.
really fighting? It looks more kind of like
it's not cool at 30.
Like
it's
canoodling.
It's men cuddling on the ground.
Yeah. Listen, sometimes you need to be with your boys in robes. And, all right, whatever. This is about Vic. It's not about me.
Guys, I think this is going to provide some legitimacy to BJJ here. Okay, so this is from I think Forbes. It said it was like an Instagram post. It was like. Here it is. It's lifting heavy weights could be an underrated factor in business growth. An entrepreneur tracked the growth of companies with CEOs that lifted weights or did fight sports compared to the S&P 500. He found his sort of martial arts deadlift ETF fund outperformed the S&P 500 by 140%.
Come on.
Or 2.4 times over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. My friend texted me that last night.
Correlation or causation? What's? I mean, this is.
I think steep correlation. Correlation of one.
But I've been doing. I've done kung fu in the past. I've done Muay Thai for almost 7 years.
Yeah,
I've done BJJ. I got pinched a nerve from BJJ.
Oh,
sorry. Got some over-eager white belts. You know.
Yeah.
Are you still doing it?
So I took a break. I
don't blame you.
But now I'm doing a Indonesian martial art called Merpati Putih, which is the Indonesian Special Forces does it. It's a pretty cool one. So I went out to Utah, did a special
what would
seminar.
that be more akin to? Like,
is it like a Krav Maga type?
It is like a ninja-fied Tai Chi with some sort of like a Filipino fighting.
So a lot of this
style.
is, I think it's good for your mental clarity.
By the way,
right?
Filipino fighting style is crab. That caught my ear as you dropped that note quietly. Filipino fighting styles are crazy, and they also developed a knife fighting sport, which is for anybody who hasn't seen
Whatever
it.
happened to just like boxing? You know, is that not
boxing is really cool until
boxing
a guy
was so
with bigger
1980s,
fists.
bro.
Yeah, until a guy with bigger fists walks up and knocks you out, right? So then you need to know the next step. But look, aside from helping you fight or self-defense, it's what's martial arts done for you?
I mean, I think it's done for all of us, right? It's
except
it's
Jack, because he sits. Jack sits around on his ass.
Yeah.
Let's
lazy.
pretend
He's lazy.
He's a
Let's
lover,
pretend
not a
I'm
fighter,
lazy.
man, you know.
Yeah, that's sure.
Discipline, mental focus. It's allowing you to handle a lot of adversity and learning how to redirect it. You know, go take what's given to you and then redirect it. So a lot of that's
I've been playing a lot of golf lately. I'm terrible. But I feel like it's really helped me come to terms with laughing at things that are so incredibly embarrassing. Because when you're bad at golf, there's nothing worse. So I don't know. I don't know if
it is the most frustrating. I will say golf is the most frustrating and most satisfying thing you could ever do.
I think in martial arts it'd be the same thing. I'd get my ass kicked, and same thing. I'd be like, you got to learn to roll with it.
I came in when I picked up BJJ, and I had some background, done a little bit of wrestling and some MMA and a lot of striking. But when I came into BJJ, I was really fat at the time. This was
peak.
Man. This is peak COVID. I was about 265 pounds. And you
guys, if you can't see this guy, I know you guys are listening to it. This guy's pretty jacked right now.
I was a big buddy. So I walked into the gym. I'm heavy.
Come on.
People don't want to roll with you when you're a big guy as it is, right? And I'm a spazzy white belt and whatever else you can say. But I had never been humbled so fast in my
yeah.
life, and everybody's gonna
Humbles
have
you.
everybody who's
And
done
a small
jiu-jitsu.
guy can choke you out.
Yeah,
Like,
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Everyone will have a similar story to this who has a jiu-jitsu experience.
Yeah.
I've never been humbled so fast, but to your point, the mental clarity, like it's more than just a workout, being there, being on the mat, and you don't have an opportunity to think about anything but what's in front of you. And that's probably the most meditative thing about that sport.
It's like golf, except you can get your ass kicked. That's basically what you
Yes.
what
I
it
think
is.
you get your ass kicked
probably
off too.
Well, physically.
That's probably right.
But I'll tell you my an experience from BJJ that
Please.
reminded me of something that I had when I was in Africa. So
Where in Africa was this? Where?
I was on the top of Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so during a BJ experience, you know, it's so claustrophobic. You're like down. They got your gi. You can't breathe, and your pride and your dignity is, I'm not going to tap out. But at some point, you go to a dark place psychologically, and it reminded me of like we were doing this hike to Kilimanjaro. I do a couple of these hikes every couple of years, and so
You haven't done Everest though, right?
not yet.
Oh, so like baby
He's
stuff still.
gonna do that between his 4.5
joking.
hours of sleep
Kilimanjaro's
and
insane.
being a cardiologist and buying $1 billion of real estate.
So we got to very close to the top. The next day we're going to ascend, and it's interesting when you're in cold weather, you have to pee all the time. And so
Yeah.
I was at night.
Is that a thing?
It is a thing. It's a
I've
thing.
noticed that. I've noticed that.
And
Really?
Yeah.
I had to get up, and so you're like zipped up in this like zero
Yeah.
thermal sleeping bag, and I couldn't. I don't know why the zipper one, and I couldn't breathe. All my people were like
geez.
sleeping. It was midnight. There's like a beautiful a moon, and I literally thought I was gonna die. I thought I was buried alive. I just like was gonna. I've never had claustrophobia before, but it felt so. And it reminded me every time I did BJJ, that same experience happened. So
So,
those
like,
are the
helped
reasons
you.
I
It
took
helped
a-
you. It
I-
helped you
I
get
took
through
a break, but that's interesting. So
Yeah. I think if you haven't yet, the great Hickson Gracie has a really good book where he focuses a lot on breath and like his technique to keep his heart rate down in deep pressure. I think you'd really enjoy it. So
and just another hint to all our real estate investors out there, you know, it's a mind game, right? So really, there's people who are much more successful than I am out there, but it really the things I've learned is like things like Wim Hof breathing, like the sports, physical, getting to sleep on time. Like I think creating an investor success physiology will lead to tremendous success over the long run.
Yeah.
And
It's all intertwined.
right. And then it's also about like, trying to emulate the great ones out there, right? So at the beginning, we're in trying to, like, there's some, sort of a larger syndication company. Oh, let's be like them.
Yeah.
But then at some point, we changed our idols, right? Now we're like, hey, look at that, like a company. Oh, they have operating companies. Oh, they're doing development. Should we do that?
Yep.
So, and I'm going to ask you guys a question. I've always come to this crossroads. Should we be more like Google or more like Apple, right? Do we need to be super focal and Apple is just really good at a few things and they crush it? Or Google's good at like a million things and they keep adding new things and they kill things quickly?
you want to take it?
And I'm
let me
asking
take it.
specifically for real estate. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Like, I have friends who have car washes. They have, and like the operating companies, but then they also do real estate. Then they also do medical office, and they also do note flipping.
Yeah, I mean,
then
look,
I have people who just do multifamily or just do office or self storage.
So if I can say it amongst our peers, Blackstone, ton of strategies.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a Blackstone, which is your Google, and you have maybe Equity Residential, which is your Apple. Who's to say that both strategies don't work, right? So I guess it ends up being what works really well for you, and you guys have built your multi-decade success.
I think you hone in on what works really well
on
for you.
multi.
Like, equity residential multifamily, like they're great at it. You guys are multi, but it seems like you're diversifying.
We're saying multi, and the
Okay.
only diversification, because look, I'll tell you some of the stupid mistakes I made as an investor. So when we were growing, me and Ravi were like, oh, we got this guy came to us and say, hey, I have $1 million of this cryptocurrency. Let's go buy assisted living with it. And then, dude, we spent it was a 6-month rabbit hole we went down. Then I had this thing where it's like, hey, hemp farms are the next thing, CBD farms. So I'm a proud owner in Colorado of like, I don't know, some
Amazing.
crazy acres of land of a hemp farm that has not paid me a distribution yet.
That's funny.
So
That's funny.
Yeah.
these are all the distractions that as you're growing.
Yeah.
But then when you realize, dude, garden style multifamily is giving me a phenomenal return. Let me just rinse and repeat that
I get
over
it.
and over.
Well, and I got to say, you're saying, you look up to these bigger guys. I mean, Viking Capital and you and your team have gotten to a point where, you have a lot of people looking up to you. And so I think that's kind of fascinating. You're right. How far you've come to where you are today. And I know for a fact, I mean, Viking Capital is respected. A lot of people want to get to where you are. And there's always that next level, right?
Yeah. Every level has its own devil.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
we had Sanjay Chandra on from Trinity just last week or 2 weeks ago at this point. And his business does multifamily investing. They both have operating companies and development, but then they also do growth equity. And those strategies are very different, but similar in what the investors are looking for. And maybe that's where your company goes next.
Yeah.
And it's, I think you alluded to that. Kind of you guys are touching development and it sounds like you have a lot of flexibility in your capital, by the way, which everybody doesn't put enough weight on what that means, right? I think a lot of people are very quick to raise funds and they got to
deploy it really quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's bad decisions that come with that. But to have trusted, flexible capital, and it's not just their trust in you, it's your trust that they'll be at the table when it's time to close and commit. And if you did have to capital call one day, can they show up? So I think that's really impressive.
And it's credit to my team, man. Like we've set the tone, but they've executed. So I really take pride in the fact that we're not always the right solution for everyone's investment.
Yeah.
And once we came to that realization, we're like, hey, let's be more of an advisory and consultancy and education versus a sales team. And when you're that way, people take you, because sometimes people run other people's deals by us. We're like, hey, that's actually a good deal.
You build trust.
You should do that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't think they talked about this assumption. You may want to look into that further, And it's at least an objective way for them to start learning. Because I think the key is for them to learn how to fish kind of thing, versus everything that multifamily, it's going to go up, I'll buy it,
Right.
Great.
Well, I think we're kind of running up on time.
Yeah.
Vic, thanks for coming on. This was
Absolutely.
really fun having you.
Yeah.
This is great. Really liked your background.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed speaking to you. Go deadlift. Go do a martial art. Don't be like Jack.
Whoa.
Be like Jack.
Thanks,
but
Vic.
be better.
It was fun.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.